Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a mix of really, really familiar faces that I haven't seen for a long time, and some unfamiliar faces, and I always like it that way. We really appreciate the support. A massive thank you to Dr. Christina Dean and Gabrielle Kirstein OBE for being here tonight. It's taken us a while to get this one organised. I'm so glad that we did, and I know you've both got incredibly busy weeks, so thanks for taking the time out of them to be here with us.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to diving into your stories and the stories of the organisations you founded, and how closing loops and the way we manufacture, consume and discard can help us work towards ending waste with both fashion and food. I think one thing that's interesting to me is that we're all wearing clothes, which is a good thing. We actually put multiple articles of clothing on every day, and we also eat several meals a day, and so all of us are going to be creating waste. And so I think this discussion is genuinely relevant to every single one of us. And with that, let's do some introductions. So maybe starting with you, Christina, if you could introduce yourself, what you were doing before your two NGOs, and the problem you're trying to solve with Redress and the R Collective.
So I am Christina. Before I started these two organisations, I was a journalist and a dentist. And what was the third question?
Your organisations.
And to Redress and the R Collective. So, yeah, dentistry, journalism and sustainable fashion don't sort of sit well together at first sort of impression. But I actually hated dentistry, but really loved public health. And to this day, I'm not as intelligent as I used to be in terms of public health, but I'm very passionate about the ethical concept of maintaining public health. And essentially, in having written about public health and pollution, I founded Redress off the back of just being very concerned about the textile industry's environmental impact, which affects obviously planet and people. So that's why I started Redress, the nonprofit. And then 10 years on, as if one wasn't enough, I started a social impact business, the R Collective.
And what does Redress and the R Collective do in a nutshell?
Redress, the nonprofit, educates designers and consumers about circular fashion in order to reduce clothing's negative environmental impact, i.e. we're just trying to get rid of fashion waste. I'll die before we achieve it. And the R Collective works with luxury fashion brands and sort of global businesses to find circular solutions for textile waste from industry.
So you create products?
Yes.
With stuff. And who do you sell them to?
We sell them to corporates, basically, events, banks, retail, hotel.
Okay.
So we make corporate gifts made out of luxury brands' waste.
Amazing. Amazing. And Gabrielle, perhaps same to you. Maybe you could introduce yourself, what you were doing before you founded Feeding Hong Kong and what Feeding Hong Kong does.
Yes, again, I think like Christina, where I started is very different to where I find myself now. So I started my career in advertising. So I worked in an advertising agency in London. And then I had the chance in 2003 to come out to Hong Kong for 3 months. Had never travelled to Asia. I'd done very little travel full stop, but had this opportunity to come out and completely and utterly fell in love with Hong Kong in that short 3 months. And I got offered a full-time job and decided I would stay in Hong Kong. And at that point, I moved more across into conferences, doing events. And I remember, vividly kind of about a year in going, how did I get here? I was organising a conference where I was in the Philippines, and I was in a room with the president of the Philippines and these top CEOs and international investors, and going, isn't this amazing? Like, not only am I doing a job, that I'm meeting these incredible people. It was so interesting. I was travelling and I was getting paid. It was just like all these boxes. But then after a couple of years, again, I was still just having these amazing, amazing experiences. But after a few years, I just felt like something was missing. And kind of background, I'd grown up always volunteering, always being involved in kind of community initiatives, charities. And I was at a conference in Thailand, in Bangkok, and the keynote speaker, who I'd invited and organised, but this keynote speaker was giving a talk about corporate social responsibility. I remember just sitting there thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to move into CSR. So I I decided I'd go back to school. So I took a year off and did a master's in development studies, and then found myself coming back to Hong Kong. It was 2009 by this stage. I should say 2003 I came during SARS, 2009 financial crisis.
Yeah.
And then I met Christina. So my, plan to move into CSR obviously had a bit of a hiccup. So I was doing event management again, and a mutual friend introduced me to Christina. And I'd, during the masters, I'd very much had leaned into the social side, really looking at poverty. I wouldn't have described myself as an environmentalist in any shape or form. And then I met Christina, and Christina just opened my eyes to the issue of waste. And it was really from that meeting, from the experiences that I had with Christina that led to Feeding Hong Kong.
Wow.
I need to tell you what that was. What was the meeting?
Yeah, this is where it gets more interesting.
When I reached out to you initially and said, let's do a podcast, you said, let's do it with Christina. Yeah. And as I sort of started reading through various bits and pieces, LinkedIn and everything else, I'm like, these two people know each other quite well. And then I realised that you're on the board of Christina's organisation, Redress. So let's hear your side of the story.
Well, I hate waste big time. And that includes all types of waste. And an Australian friend came to Hong Kong about 20 years ago, and she was a dumpster diver for food. And I'd always wanted to dumpster dive into bins to find food, because I was deep in textile waste. I mean, up to my eyeballs. Food I was also very interested in. So I used to get dressed up at night with like a black balaclava and a torch and go trawling around the backs of, I won't name them because probably I'll be, it isn't as illegal as it sounds, but I got so good at it, honestly. At the beginning I was so terrified. But then I got so blasé and so good because I just used to drive down. I knew exactly. And would you like to know how to do it?
Go for it. Let's do it.
Okay. In a nutshell, if there is a supermarket, around 20 to 30 minutes after it closes, typically that's when the food that is going to be discarded will come out the back of the building. So I worked it out. So I just pulled up the car, the bags are dropped, and before they get squished by the compressors, I just used to take the food. So I had so much food. Every night, because I couldn't get more food in the house. And then she turned up. And then over to you.
Yeah, well, at that point, I'm saying, composting. We really need to get composting happening in Hong Kong. No one is separating their waste. Nobody's recycling their waste. And you had this idea to do this event, let's talk about it. Let's get people together talking about it. And so I turned up at Christina's house, and before you'd open the door and just this waft of bread came out, the smell of bread. And I walked into a living room and it was just this mountain of bread. And she told me this story of the night before. She'd, been out with her balaclava on and had found this bread. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, that's food. That's not waste. It's food.
Yeah.
And I was connecting with a few small shelters at that point. I was doing a bit of volunteering. And I was just meeting these charities that were just doing so much with so little. They were desperately trying to fundraise to buy food, to provide 3 meals a day to people that were really struggling, that didn't have anything. And then looking at this table of bread going, well, could we go through the front door and speak to the food companies? And instead of this food being thrown in the bin, can we encourage them to donate? And that was where it all started. And it was the Food Project for such a long time. And that's
what it was called, was it? Yeah. The Food Project.
So for 2 years, it was the Food Project, which was under, alongside Redress, the fashion.
Okay.
We were going to take on the whole world and do fashion waste, food waste, and then I thought, why not fuel? Because it sounds like all those 3 F's and a bit carbon. Easy.
Yeah, do them all.
So that's kind of how our early friendship started.
That's amazing.
And then it was, I kind of leaned more into the food side of it. And it was, after 2 years of it being this, volunteer project, by which stage we'd convinced a series of bakeries to be donating on a regular basis. We had a group of small shelters that were receiving. But it was realising that bakeries were just one small part of the puzzle. And when you look at just the food in, I was going to say the food industry in Hong Kong, but the food industry full stop. At every single point along the supply chain, there are companies that in the normal course of business have good food that for various different reasons, they are no longer going to sell or able to sell. And rather than that food become waste, how can we save it? How can we work together and partner with those food companies to ensure that instead that good food goes to feed people in need?
And that was the genesis for Feeding
And that was
Hong
the
Kong.
genesis. And then it was 2011, incorporated Feeding Hong Kong as a charity. And Christina was a founding board director. So she sat on the board of Feeding Hong Kong for those first crucial, critical years. But yeah, we've been, so this is why I always think, you know, my charity sister, but Redress is Feeding Hong Kong's sister charity.
Oh, amazing. That's an amazing story. So I read that one garbage truck of textiles is landfilled or burned globally every second on your website. And in Hong Kong alone, 217 tons of clothing goes to waste every day, which is 20 garbage trucks. And then with food, it was 3,190 tons of food waste goes to Hong Kong landfills every day, or 300 garbage trucks, depending on the size of the garbage truck, with over 1 million people in poverty here.
Yeah. And we can put that volume of food in meals. It's about 7.5 million meals a day that end up in landfill. We're a city with a population of about 7.5 million people.
It's mad. I mean, 300 garbage trucks. It's hard to even wrap your head around that number. So I have a sentence that I want each of you to try and complete for me. If everyone in Hong Kong did just one thing this week, it would be two. Who wants to go first?
Not throw food away.
Fall in love with their wardrobe.
Fall in love with their wardrobe. Okay. So going back to you, Christina, because Gabrielle's kind of told us this, was there a moment or a specific insight that pushed you to found Redress?
Yeah, I was having a glass of Chardonnay in Lang Kwai Fong, and
as all good stories start.
And I had finished writing an article, and I studied journalism again when I gave up dentistry, and I really was the biggest nerd out, and so I was really well researched back in the day, and I just was really horrified, staggered, disgusted, appalled by not only the impact of the fashion industry then, but the growth, the future projections of the growth of the industry, which that was 18 years ago, is now, it's still going up, 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 up. And I think it was the combination of knowledge and fear and concern. And I thought, I can't be a journalist about this topic, because the key thing to say is, being a journalist, I couldn't find many people talking about it. And that was the key thing. How is it that no one's talking about this? And so that was then the moment I thought, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. It was a very clear moment.
Okay. Yeah. So it was from the research that you did for an article?
Yeah, the research my research never ends.
Yeah.
But yes, essentially.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you a question about this. I found this photo. Can you tell us a little bit about that photo?
What is going on? Is this my wardrobe? Or no, it's not. Well, let me tell you. So this was really a fun project, actually. It was about 10-ish plus 12 years ago. I did this crazy project called the 365 Challenge, which entailed me every single day wearing a different outfit from Hong Kong consumers' cast-offs. So what I wanted to... So I was doing a shoot for Al Jazeera, and we made a massive TV story, which was so long. It took a week. It was only about 3 minutes long when they aired it, but that's another story. And I was in Hong Kong landfills. We were allowed to go there, and we were filming. And I saw all these rubbish trucks dumping off their trash, in which 3% roughly of Hong Kong's landfills is textiles. And it was just this kind of visceral and smelly and obvious, like, what on earth is going on? Like, the fashion industry is working its socks off trying to clean up its filthy act, and it's doing really badly. And at the same time, we imbeciles are chucking everything away, whether it's food or clothes. I mean, what on earth is wrong with people, including me? So therefore, I decided that I would only wear other people's cast-offs for a year. And so that photo is taken from my actual wardrobe. Yes, it is my wardrobe. And so I had a lot of fun, actually, and I fell in love with clothes for the first time. So I was never a normal fashion consumer. I'm not into fashion. But I fell in love with clothes whilst wearing everybody's cast-off. And I took great delight in getting the biggest stains and rips and filthy clothes out of Hong Kong. I mean, and you may think I'm mad, and I'm not. You know, what I loved was taking what somebody else thought was no good and cleaning it, repairing it, whatever. And the reason that I fell in love with clothes throughout that 1 year, having worn thousands, I mean, I don't know, of outfits, or items rather, not outfits, is that fashion actually has the ability to transform how you think and feel, you know. You actually feel different when you're wearing you feel great, you feel bad, this doesn't suit me, I feel amazing, I feel gorgeous, I feel absolutely awful in this outfit. So I really noticed how it affects you as an individual, your feelings of self, and that is very important on our, not just the ego, but the psyche, your emotions, your inner life. So if anyone who says fashion is frivolous, they should come to a dumpster with me and I'll show them that it's not.
It's kind of fascinating to me that you said it there, you were never into fashion before that. You were a dentist, a journalist, and now you've been in fashion for close to 20 years. Gabrielle, you were in marketing and communications, had nothing to do with food waste and certainly nothing to do with logistics.
No.
And now, I mean, a large part of what Feeding Hong Kong seems to do is sort of figure out the logistics between surplus food and where it's needed and making sure it goes from where it's surplus to where it's needed.
And that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
It is all logistics.
So going into these two NGOs, how did you go from idea to execution? Because it's one thing to see something and get passionate about it. And most people would say, I'll do some volunteering or I'll give a little bit of money. What was that journey like? Maybe, Gabrielle, you can start.
I think for myself, I always describe myself now as like an accidental founder because I didn't go out saying, I want to start a charity. I want to start a charity to fix these problems.
Yeah.
It was realizing this issue existed, going and seeing it for myself first time as well. I think that was for me, was going and seeing, bakeries at the end of the day, what they were doing with their surplus food, and going, well, it just felt like it was a problem that could be solved. That it was a problem that could be solved, and what I like is solving problems. So I kind of tackled, and I had a full time. I was still doing events and conferences, so this was something that I was just chipping away at in my spare time. So it started
as a side passion project on the side.
Yeah, it was very much a passion project, and really starting. And I think where I started as well was going, well, surely someone else is doing this. Surely, first of all, I couldn't believe that there wasn't somebody in Hong Kong that was doing it, and finding that there wasn't. But then finding that there were other similar solutions in other countries. And then, like Christina, I'm a bit of a geek as well. I like kind of really just diving into things. So understanding how it was working in other countries and then looking to see how could we bring that and apply this to Hong Kong. I think as well, surrounding myself with people that did know logistics and knew the food industry. I think I really saw myself, certainly in the beginning, as just kind of bringing people together, a bit of a convener. I was quite happy just being behind the scenes. And for a very long time, that's where I kind of wanted to stay, where was, I think one of the biggest challenges in the early days was really kind of stepping forward and being kind of at the forefront and really trying to kind of move things forward and raise awareness about what we were doing. But how did would I call myself a logistics expert even today? And I'm now 15, 16 years on. No, but I've learned by doing and learned through, as I say, surrounding myself with other people that do have the knowledge, do have the expertise.
And share the passion.
And share the passion.
Yeah.
And I think that is always, when I think about the Feeding Hong Kong team, that is what really stands out, is that I have this wonderful team who they care.
Yeah.
I have a warehouse, I have a fleet of trucks, our drivers, they could go and get a job in the commercial sector. Why are they working at Feeding Hong Kong? They're at Feeding Hong Kong because they care about food. They hate waste and they care about the community.
Yeah.
And that is what brings us all together.
Yep.
And we work together. And we
Amazing.
support each other. And that's been part of, I think, the journey.
Fantastic. And for you, Christina?
Well, I think Gab said it for me. It's very similar, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I think starting something, when you look back, it was so easy. It is, actually. It's very easy to start
my
something.
favourite time with those early years as well. I think, honestly, going back, when we had nothing,
Yeah.
it was the passion and it was it was all exciting and new, and they're still my favourite.
Yeah.
It's different. There are different things that bring you joy now, but I think if you thought about it too much,
You'd never do
you'd
it.
never do it.
Yeah, I think it's very easy starting a company, a non-profit. It's maintaining it and growing it. That's the problem. So starting it at the time felt really overwhelming and all that. But, as Gab said, finding people who also care, building a team, finding the money, finding the project. And then you realise, then you've got to look at impact. When you're a little bit older, are we actually doing any good?
Yeah.
We're banging on about it and raising awareness, but is it actually changing the wasteful situation? So I found it really, I'm sorry to say, it was very easy to start.
Yeah.
It's been really, really hard to maintain it.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about that
likewise,
because
yeah.
you've been, you've been going for close to 15 years. You've been going for close to 20. Today, where do you get the fuel to keep doing what you're doing?
Well, I get that through, that's a difficult one, because on the negative side, as a founder, you're constantly being required to do stuff that you're not very good at. That's my case anyway. I was good at getting an idea, I was good at getting people together, and I'm still good at what I do. But what I need to do now, I've never done it before, like really good board governance. I don't really know how to do it. So I'm constantly learning on the job, but the stakes are much higher. And the nerd in me has to work much harder to try to understand these really complicated things that I'm now, as board chair, being required to do. So is the question, how do you keep going?
Yeah.
I think you've got to really love and hate what you do, because I hate waste.
Yeah.
And I feel really determined. And now I feel like I have an even bigger responsibility, because I've amassed 18 years of really grimy experience in the supply chain. Because I haven't told you about the business that I founded. So it's not that grimy, but it's very real. So what I'm saying is, you can go and Google fashion waste, you can read a book about it, but unless you go and do it, it's a very different thing, because no one talks about waste. The data isn't possibly true. Who knows? Whatever. So the point is, it's a practice what we do. I think. Would you say, Gabs? Meaning, it's we learning through doing.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
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 So and it becomes a vocation as well. It's not a job.
Yeah.
It is, like both of us, I think, live and breathe what we do. There is nothing 9 to 5 about this. And you couldn't do it if you didn't really care.
Yeah.
And if you weren't, so connected to the cause. And similarly, hate the waste, want to make change, want to see the world be a better place.
But also, if we gave up, we'd give up 18 years of experience that we can contribute. And one day, if I'm ever able to, what I'd really like to do when I master being a board chair, which is an ongoing process, is I would, and I'm going to do it when I'm maybe 55 or maybe 60, when I'm 60. If anyone will have me, I'm going to go on boards, shake up other companies, if they'll have me. Because imagine how much experience that one would have by then.
Yeah. And I think you can only get that building from zero.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. What part of the fashion waste stream worries you the most today, particularly through a Hong Kong lens? And how you try to create sort of systemic change?
Well,
I guess that's kind of the goal, right, is to change the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's nigh on impossible. The industry is so complicated, from, the entire supply chain to consumers. And actually, if I could just summarize the fashion industry in a nutshell, you've got one of the world's most industrially complex and polluting, far-reaching supply chains, multinational, making a product for people who are wildly different. You chop and change their minds. They're culturally diverse, economically diverse. They have different trends. They follow different things. So you've got a complicated industry making stuff for a complicated group of consumers. And so it's no wonder that the industry is in a complete and utter mess. Yeah. So what worries me the most about all sorts of waste is possibly post-consumer at the moment. I mean, I worry about it all. Pre and post, I think it's quite obvious, you know, the pre bit is the industry bit, the post bit is when we've had enough of it. I think I'm equally appalled by both sides of the sort of retail divide, but I think post-consumer is really upsetting me at the moment. I'm sorry to say that the actual daily textile waste in Hong Kong is 402 tons. It's up from the 217.
Wow.
I didn't want to poo-poo and like, you know, but unfortunately it's even worse.
It's nearly double.
Yeah, that off 24.
Yeah.
The stats for that. So post-consumer, how is it that we in Hong Kong chuck away 402 tons of textiles? That includes carpets and curtains and home furnishings. It's not all clothes. And so that worries me. And I've also just got back from Ghana. And Ghana in Africa is a very famous place for dumping post-consumer textiles. And it's become a very sort of politicized and extremely sensitive and abhorrent practice where the global north are just dumping a lot of good clothes, but a lot of really bad clothes on a country that doesn't have the infrastructure whatsoever to either sort or recycle. And so I'm kind of fresh off the boat from Accra and seeing the textile waste, it's everywhere. It's in communities. There's informal landfills. I mean, like literally in huge landfills just of clothes and textiles. It's in the waterways. It's washing up on beaches. So I know that that's not Hong Kong, but the global fashion industry is squeezing out waste all over the place, I'm afraid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and say something that I think Redress has done in terms of systemic change? Because I think you're always so modest about what you've kind of achieved and you are always looking at the challenges still ahead, which quite rightly there are so many. But if you look at what the Redress Design Award alone has achieved, so we're going into the 15th cycle of the Redress Design Award, which Christina will explain it better, but an award which is engaging with young and up-and-coming designers and really teaching them about sustainability from the get-go and changing the way that designers are approaching the creation of clothing. And to think in 15 years what you and the Redress team have achieved through that award, I think is incredible. I think you really have shifted the dial, not just in Hong Kong, but across the region.
And that's happening this week.
Yes,
And that is happening this week. Yeah.
We've got the grand final on Thursday, which is 10 designers, 9 regions, 15th cycle. But then behind them are 330-ish alumni fashion designers from 92 countries globally. And we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of universities on and off throughout the last 15 years to deliver circular, sustainable fashion design education. Because the problem is, education we need everywhere, right? I mean, you know, we're such a sort of stupid nation, it seems, but regardless, education in fashion design is really archaic. And so the designers are not equipped with the solutions that they need to have at the design stage. And so, yes, thanks, Gabs. We have done a good job. Yeah, we've really, really done a great job, actually, on that.
But I think what was interesting to me about reading about the work that both Redress and Feeding Hong Kong do is that education is such a big part of it. It's not just closing the loop. And I think that education piece is the only way that you're going to get that systemic change, because it's got to start somewhere, right? And particularly educating young designers, and I know you do a lot with schools and stuff as well. It's starting at that stage is the only way you're going to see the change that you're hoping to see, so that these organizations don't need to be around. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right?
It's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Now the reality isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But as well, going back to education, and I just wanted to pick up on that, because I think sometimes when we talk about education as charities, you know, our mind goes to the importance of going into schools, which is and so incredibly important.
Yeah.
But actually for Feeding Hong Kong, a big part of what we're doing as well is working directly. We describe ourselves as a B2B organisation, and we're connecting businesses with other charities. But the education we have to do with those two partners, first and foremost, is, you know, our goal first is how do we change the way the food industry relates to surplus food, how they treat their own waste. And then when it comes to charities, how can we help charities realise and leverage the opportunity that surplus food can present, and how that can help them in the running of food programmes and addressing food poverty. So we really see there's still so much work to do just in those two areas. And yes, there is the public awareness as well in the importance of going into schools. But I think it's so important that we start to really segment and break down that education piece.
Yeah.
And we're really focused now on how can we do more and more in partnership with those two, first and foremost, our food industry partners and our charity partners.
Okay. And is the need changing since you started? So I was kind of thinking about, is it quantity of food? Is it quality of food? Is it nutrition?
Well, going back to, Christina just mentioned the stat about, how things had got worse in terms of textiles. So you shared the figure at the beginning, 3,200 tonnes of roughly food ending up in landfill every single day in Hong Kong. Now, when we first met back in 2009, or that was the first thing I did, I went and looked up how much food is being thrown away. It was about 3,200 tonnes of food a day. Okay. And that's 16 years ago.
Wow.
Now, we've had some ups and we've had some downs. Compared to last year, we have reduced slightly the amount of food that is going to landfill. But overall, we've not really changed the dial. We are still in the same place we were 16 years ago. So we have a long way to go. But what has changed, and I think this is linking round to your point about, the need for systemic change, for behaviour change, awareness has changed. And I think probably on the fashion front as well. When we started, nobody was talking about food waste in Hong Kong. Nobody really was talking about waste because, obviously we were looking at textiles as well, but just waste was not an issue. Talking about environmental issues, again, there really weren't too many conversations. And I think compare then to now. Now, daily, we are engaging in conversations about waste in Hong Kong. And then alongside of that is also the acknowledgement of the need in Hong Kong. Because similarly, back when we were starting, that there wasn't a poverty line in Hong Kong. We didn't talk about poverty. And there is
still
now
quite hidden here. People are not aware of it.
It is still hidden, but there is a big contrast, I would say, now compared to, again, 16 years. There is a greater awareness that, yes, we're incredibly lucky. We live in such a fantastic, affluent city, but there are so many people within this city that cannot access, or enjoy that privilege.
Yeah.
We have over 1 million people that are struggling to afford 3 meals a day. And that is, again, another challenge we've not seen. We're seeing inequality widen in Hong Kong. It is right now, it's at one of its highest in years. So these two massive, massive problems still exist. And that's why it needs organisations, such as Feeding Hong Kong and Redress, as well as so many others that are in the sector, to be tackling these issues and working in partnership with other NGOs, with corporates, and obviously with the government as well.
Yeah. I asked you earlier about the fuel that drives you, and I'm guessing that part of that is also seeing people who wouldn't have 3 meals a day, or maybe not even have 1 meal a day, getting food through the work you're doing. I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest things that drives you.
Because food is the most basic of needs.
Yeah.
We cannot, you said at the beginning, we cannot survive without it. And again, to think that in a city that has so much, that there are so many people that struggle. And this is something that we can do something about. Now, as a food bank, are we solving food poverty? Can we solve poverty? No, we can't.
Yeah.
But can we save good food that would otherwise, go to waste, would contribute to this, environmental damage? Can we save that food and can we share it? Yes, we can. And then I think on top of that is food is more than just nutrition. Food brings people together. And I think that I loved what you said earlier about, the other side of fashion. There is so much about we come together around meals, we come together around food to celebrate, to think of all the festivals in Hong Kong at which food plays such a central role. And we really see that in our work, that yes, first and foremost, it's about making sure everybody has the basics, but also how food brings people together as a community.
Amazing. Can I ask you guys, maybe starting with Christina, how do you fund the work that you do, sort of pay the salaries, the operation cost, the overhead, the rent? For people who don't know how a non-profit works, how do you fund that work?
So for
Difficulty for all of us.
I haven't sort of sold any of my kids yet. Consider it sometimes. So Redress is funded by a combination of Hong Kong government grants, foundations run by fashion brand foundations, family foundations. So grants.
Grants from corporates and families.
And then we also have corporate sponsorship from sort of big companies that want to sponsor us in order to be aligned with what we are doing. And then we have a sort of more entrepreneurial program to collect unwanted clothes. And part of that entire program to sort is to resell. So it's a somewhat entrepreneurial pursuit, obviously still within a charitable sector, to self-fundraise, to diversify our own funding mechanisms. So we're not reliant on grants.
Okay, so it's grants and earned income.
Private, and private corporates.
Okay.
Sponsorship.
And similar for you, Gabrielle?
So I think the big difference is, so we don't have any government support at Feeding Hong Kong, so rely heavily on grants, but from corporates and foundations. And I think, again, and maybe a slightly different thing with Feeding Hong Kong as well, is the role of individual giving that has increased over the years. So members of the public just generously supporting our work, but we don't have an earned income stream like Redress.
I'm really surprised that the government doesn't get involved in food waste, especially when they have all these people who need food.
Again, we've been on a journey
Yeah.
with government engagement in terms of food surplus over the years. You know, when we started, being very enthusiastic and optimistic, reaching out to, first of all, going to the Environmental Protection Department and them coming and visiting the warehouse and coming in and saying, this is great, we love what you do, but this is social welfare. You're feeding people, so you need to speak to the Social Welfare Department.
Yeah.
So then we went out and met the Social Welfare Department, invited them in. They saw what we did. They loved what we did, but said, this is environmental protection. You need to go and feed EPD. So we went back and forth for years. And I think we just came to a point where I went, okay, we're going to step back and we're going to rethink. And that was when we really leaned into corporates.
Okay.
And I've got to say, from day one, actually, the support that we had from the corporate sector, who really, again, saw that what we were doing was something that was missing and something that could make a difference. And that it was very tangible, because we were very data-driven at Feeding Hong Kong. And when you're applying for corporate grants, you have to give a lot of data and be reporting on what your impact is. And we quantify everything. We were able to, share, this is how much food we, think we can save. And this is how many meals it's going to support. These are the number of people that it's going to help. The number of charities that are going to be able to save X amount of dollars because they are receiving donated food versus having to purchase everything. So being able to quantify it, and that was something that our corporate funders, they saw the numbers and they went, this is a sound investment. And with so we stepped back from that government funding. Now, what I say is just before the pandemic, it's probably about 2018, 2019, the government was starting to look and to support more programs related to food rescue. Sadly, though, there has been a big shift this year. So priorities have changed. The government is still looking at different ways that they can support vulnerable communities in Hong Kong, but they are stepping back from supporting food surplus. So for the first time since we've been running, we have 7 charities that have had to come to us in the last 6 months to say they are having to pause their food distribution because of this shift in funding.
Wow.
And this is against the current economic climate as well. So each of those have obviously gone out and tried to seek alternative funding from corporates, from family foundations, but have been unable to plug that gap to be able to redistribute surplus food.
That's super
So
interesting.
again, that's another, going back to what's that motivation, that has made us even more motivated this year to see how can we continue to be that organisation that is the connector, is trying to connect the corporates with the amazing charities across the city that are doing that last mile, that are putting the food into the hands of people that really need it.
It was my next question was going to be, what shifts have you seen in individual, corporate, and government giving? Because there's been a lot in the news about various governments not giving what they used to be giving for various reasons. But maybe for you, Christine, have you seen a big shift in the way people, organisations, and governments are giving over the last few years?
Well, I was going to perhaps not answer that question, but I might try to, because I want to tell you something, which is that I went to INSEAD in 2015 and studied social entrepreneurship. And I was told that grants kill enterprise. Grants kill enterprise. I was like, okay. Because grants do kill enterprise, actually, because you just put your hands out and then you write the thing and you tick the boxes and you get the money. It is harder than that, right, Gabs? But essentially, if you're doing good work and you meet the requirements, you get the grant. Yeah, if you work hard, you get it. You do well with it. So essentially, in 2015, I started to look at the role of business in this mess of the fashion waste system. And so that is why I started a social impact business, because I thought, this is a massive 2.54 trillion USD annual revenue, the fashion industry, and why don't we work with them? And so I started the enterprise bit. So the grants live with Redress, and I'm obviously very pro grants. I'm very pro the government support. I'm super, obviously, because that is how we achieve our educational mission without having to charge for everything that we do. And so the enterprise side of it, and it really talks to how the industry and government are playing into this, is that I started a business, the R Collective, to work with luxury brands on a win-win solution for their excess materials. And so to somewhat answer your question, how have I seen the funding change? It definitely is tight. Funding for nonprofits is really challenging, but if you can find a solution that works for business, it works. If it's going to save a business money and make them look and good look good and feel good about themselves, less about feeling. I mean, do businesses care about feeling? I'm actually very pro-business, by the way, but it's got to work on the bottom line. And so that enterprise is how the R Collective was really born. How do we take waste from brands, turn it into something else, and everybody wins? So I believe that, with all of these crises, and I guess in some ways maybe, Gabs, with you saying Feeding Hong Kong is essentially a B2B.
Well, I think this mirrors a lot of the conversations we have with companies now. How do we translate that into the food companies we work with actually supporting financially? So we're working with probably over 250 food companies each year to help rescue and redistribute their food. Now, this is food that I'm going to keep saying it is otherwise going to end up as waste. It is going to end up in landfill. Now, right now, because of various different factors, but mainly because there is no waste charge in Hong Kong, this really doesn't hit the bottom line of these organisations. It is free to dispose of this waste. But what we're doing is we're going to them saying, look, we want to save this food. We're going to help you redistribute it. So for all of these companies that are now reporting on sustainability, we're able to give you a report which quantifies exactly, by this food being eaten rather than wasted, how much CO2 emissions have we been able to save because it has not gone to landfill. And then the social impact, how many meals have we supported because that food has fed people. Now, will any of those companies that donate the food actually pay a fee for that service that we do? Of the many that we work for, it's a handful. It is an absolute handful. So I think there is just there's almost like a mental block where for a lot of the companies, and again, that we meet so many people whose heart are in the right place, but they go, you're a charity. You're a charity. So, we are going to give you the food for free, but we are not going to give financial support as well. So how do we shift that mentality that what we're doing is a service as well, but it's a added value service. It's a service that is ticking so many boxes.
So I'm guessing
and we're a charity.
I'm guessing a lot of the funding then is coming from non-food companies. Other companies that just want to support a good cause and have, a foundation and have decided that feeding on...
For example, we get a lot of support from, financial institutions who have a separate foundation and then they'll have certain pillars. And we are very fortunate at Feeding Hong Kong. Food is is a central pillar for many foundations. Poverty is a pillar for many foundations. So we're able to apply and say, look, through our model, our B2B model, we are ticking these boxes, and we're able to give those impact measurements.
Yeah.
But I do get frustrated, but also it's what keeps us going, is how do we make that shift with business so that they see us as an equal and a partner, rather than, you know, a charity that's just there with a begging bowl, looking for the, you know, the scraps, quite literally. The scraps, but there is just so much more that we can do when we approach it as a partnership. And we do have some companies that we're just like this, but it's how do we shift that so that it is industry wide?
Yeah, I'm wildly agitated. Can I say something?
Yes, go for it.
Get it off your chest.
Okay, I'm going to go back to education, because I did keep my mouth shut, but my heart was pounding. Okay, so I believe in education. Redress puts a heart and soul from secondary schools to fashion designers to fashion brands, etc. It is the key to everything, but it's the key to everything in the whole wide world.
Yep.
We don't have time.
Yep.
Education takes a long time, right? So I've given up on education, even though we do it, and we do it fabulously, etc. All right, okay?
They do.
All right. Now, the reason I've given up on it is too slow. So we still do it, obviously.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like, this is the arc of a founder, and I don't know if I speak for you, Gabs, but, you know, I think it's consumers, okay, it's just like, whatever, we'll still do it, but, you know, you're so slow, forget it. So then you start looking at business. And then you think, okay, how do we work with business to solve the problem? You don't want it, you have to solve the problem of the bottom line. Okay, so that's also obviously clearly in my mind. But then you start thinking, well, what is the policy? Because it's only if policy changes that the business will change their bottom line.
Yeah.
So then you think, my goodness, here is a dentist and a journalist trying to influence policy.
Yeah.
So
No,
it kind of happens if...
But with 20 plus years experience now in this
But
sector.
you said it, right? That there's no,
But so
the
going back
government's, there's no policy for people on food waste.
So going back to-
it doesn't cost them anything.
Exactly. So going back to policy, the waste charge.
Yeah.
We've gone round and round in circles over it. There are many in this room that know a lot about it. But it took 18 years, first proposed over 18 years before it was passed in LegCo. It was approved. Then there was an implementation plan. And this was middle of the pandemic, it was improved. There was an implementation plan, and then it was postponed. And then a new date was set, and then it was postponed again. And then a new date, and it's been postponed so many times. And now it is on indefinite pause. Now, why was this such a big thing? Because the minute that you start to charge for waste, businesses look at it differently. It is hitting their bottom line in a different way. So for us to go to this, again, going back to that solution, the dollar that instead of you spending that on the waste charge, invest that dollar in feeding Hong Kong, and we will save and we will share that food.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things that we were looking at, was that dynamic shift. But there are so many other policies.
Yeah.
Alongside of that. So I think we've put so much, you know, our hearts and souls into waste charge. Now I've kind of stepped back from it, going, when it happens, it'll happen.
Yeah.
But I think alongside of that, there are two others specifically relating to what we're doing at Feeding Hong Kong. Good Samaritan legislation, which I think probably has a connection as well for fashion, that if a company is to donate a product in good faith, so in our case food, if something happens down the line, so if somebody were ultimately to get sick, that company will not be held liable. Now, why is this a big thing? Because it is often used as a reason why companies will not donate. So if we can tackle the Good Samaritan legislation and the waste charge, two massive things. But to me, the third piece, going back to the reality of business, we need an incentive. We've got the disincentive of a waste charge. We need to balance that with an incentive. So a tax deduction. So for companies that donate a product or service, right now in Hong Kong, it's not tax deductible. You only get a tax deduction if you donate cash. So for us to bring in a tax deduction as well, you're creating an environment where for a business, it doesn't make sense to not donate. You know, why wouldn't you? And that's where, you know, we need to be working with government to bring this through.
That the ideas are there. It's just...
Yeah, none of this is... And I think for all of us, we're looking around the world and going, we can see we've got so many case studies where we can look to other places and see where this is effective and how it really creates the environment for things to change. But it's the pace of change.
So for people who don't know, when you get funding, be it from a family foundation, a corporate, or the government, you get either restricted funding or unrestricted funding. Can you kind of just help to explain the difference between the two?
Shall I dive in? Honestly, I worked commercial before I moved into to the charity world, and to me, it was the most ridiculous thing in the world to suddenly be presented with a situation where you're speaking to funders, and they would say, "Oh, we love what you do, but we don't pay salaries." And it was like, well, the one thing I need is people to be able to do what we do. And so, about 3 big costs in terms of running a food bank: storage, so rent, space, transport, trucks, the drivers, and then it is the people to manage all of this. And we work with volunteers. We work with over 200 volunteers every single week, but we need trained staff. We need people who have driving licenses to, manage those trucks, people who are experts in food safety to oversee and manage our warehouse, particularly cold chain. But to find funding for those costs is so challenging. Now, to go back to your question, restricted versus unrestricted, I went in very naively thinking, well, if people like what they do, they will just write us a check and then we will make those decisions as to how we best spend that, as you would do as a, entrepreneur, business seeking seed funding. Restricted funding is the funding saying, yes, we like what you do, we will give you a check, but you have to spend it on this. And you can only spend it on this. And here are the outcomes that we expect for this funding. And there are some things where it is still incredibly helpful. But what is a small organisation? What is a growing organisation? You also need flexibility. Yeah. You need to be able to pivot with the best will in the world. We can say this is what we think is going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. It doesn't always work that way. And the challenge with restricted funding is that you don't have that room to flex. You don't have the room to pivot. Unrestricted is exactly that, is an organisation or an individual who donates and says, we trust you. We trust you to make the decisions as to where this money is best spent. And we still report. We will still, at the end of the funding period, go back and say, these are the decisions we made. Here is the impact we created. But it's trusting in us and giving us the choice to make those decisions.
But either way, it's fully transparent.
Either way, it's fully transparent.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a funder who's never financed general operating support?
I mean, who pays your electricity bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you run your business without paying staff?
So I had a question for you guys. A lot of funders will give you money and will ask you to do certain things with that money. And my guess is that sometimes you're forced to deal with mission creep or make that call that I'm going to take this funding or I'm not going to take this funding, because funders quite often have a different idea from the NGO.
Yeah.
A reality for you every day dealing with this? And have you walked away from funding because it was asking you to do something that was not what you thought was what you wanted to do?
Feeding Hong Kong, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think it's it's the arc that you go on as well as the organisation matures. And going back to when you said earlier about it's easy at the beginning. It's easier at the beginning because you're new.
Yeah.
People like new things. They like new projects. They like new programs. They like new solutions. When we started Feed Hong Kong, we were the first food bank. Yeah. People like being involved with things that are new. And as time goes on, so I think this does happen daily. People will approach us, or we're in conversations with potential funders, and we share, this is what we do. We run a warehouse. We have programs where we're working with the airport, a program with the retailers, we're a program with wholesalers. We do a mobile food pantry. And they go, well, this is all great, but what can you do that's new? We want something that's new. It's like, again, go back to that business analogy. Would you go and look at investing in a pizza restaurant, see what they do, see their fantastic, the work that they've built, how they do something, the recipe that they've developed, and go, we will give you money if you serve burgers? That's essentially what is happening.
Yeah.
That we're being asked, can we do something completely different? Not always, but so it is hard, and the temptation is that you go, well, both are food. We are in the food industry, so can we lean? Can we? And in the early days, yes, we said yes to things that it felt like it was a food fit.
Yeah.
but were we creating the biggest impact? I'll give you examples. We had a program, we were approached by a funder who said, we're really passionate about urban farming. Would you be interested in partnering to help start edible gardens on the rooftop of schools? And we were like, well, this really, we can see a connection.
Yeah.
Because part of what we were seeing was this disconnect in Hong Kong from the reality of food. We import 95% of our food. And if you're disconnected from the resources that go into growing food, waste becomes easier. Whereas if you really appreciate the amount of work. So we thought, well, this kind of makes sense. We can get to the link. We have a full loop. We were so passionate about composting at that point. We're like, well, we can do composting. We're growing food. We're taking the waste. It felt like this cycle. But it's not what we do. We're a food bank.
Yeah.
We save and redistribute surplus food that already exists. We don't need to get involved in growing it. And so we did take this particular grant. And what I should say is everybody loved this program. Everyone loved it. Schools loved it. Staff loved it. Our volunteers loved it. I loved it. It was the hardest thing. But at the end of it, I stepped back and I went, we've poured our hearts and souls into this, but it's not helped us with the food bank.
Yeah.
And where's still the gap? There were other organisations that are much better at urban farming that really specialise in that. There was no other organisation that was focused on logistics.
Yeah.
But it's not as fun. It's not as sexy as building urban farms. But it was a big lesson for me because I got to the end of it and went, okay, we have to say no.
Yeah.
We do have to say no to things. And less is more, is doing less programs and being very focused and very clear on where can we create the biggest value, the greatest value? Where is the gap that we Feeding Hong Kong can uniquely fill?
Yeah.
And that is logistics.
Yeah.
Is food bank logistics. So we do say no, and it is always the hardest thing. But it's always a thoughtful no, and it's a no, not now.
Yeah.
Or it's a no, but.
Yeah.
This is where we really need support.
Yeah.
These are the areas where if you
you never want to close the door, right?
You never want to close the door.
Yeah.
You never want to close the door. And I think it's the most incredibly rewarding thing when you can bring a funder on that journey with you and you can convince them that the idea that they had is a great idea, but if they want to work with us, this is where together we can make the greatest impact and to bring them on that journey. And I think the other thing is to accept that you're not going to work with everybody.
Yeah.
You're not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. And if something doesn't work out, it's, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Christina, you've talked a bit about business and how you love business. What do you think the for-profit world can learn from the NGO world?
What could the for-profit? I suppose maybe it's cementing purpose in all the decisions that are made, but purpose doesn't pay the bills. So I don't know if that's realistic, particularly in a tough economic.
So we've learnt that here.
Yeah.
We went into this thinking everyone would love what we're doing. We were giving back. We were supporting the community. We were giving the space out for free. We were doing things through our environmentally friendly lens, every decision we made. And it doesn't pay the bills. It really doesn't pay the bills.
I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's because you feel like it should.
Yeah.
It should. And you've got a room here that I'm sure agree as well.
Yeah.
That all of these things
are
the way that we should be moving as a society.
Yeah.
And so it's heartbreaking when it doesn't. But we can't give up. And I think that's and you haven't given up.
No, we
still going.
keep purpose at our core, but we've had to pivot in terms of our messaging and stuff because it just wasn't resonating. The fact that we still do it is because we believe in it. But when we led with that messaging, it just wasn't resonating.
I can see that and respond in many ways, but I also wanted to flip your question, which was what could the non-profit world learn from the for-profit world?
Yeah.
And I think that, obviously I straddle both. In a day, I can do meetings on both sides. It's really schizophrenic. So I'm like, whoa, which one am I in? But basically, I think the non-profit world could learn a lot from business, which is like, get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because business doesn't wait. And I think the non-profit has a mild luxury in that they're a registered charity, they do education, advocacy, they change the world, da-da-da-da-da. But they could basically do with a bit more of a push. And I'm not speaking of Redress, because obviously I am in both, but being a charity, you said the begging bowl. Yeah. Non-profits should operate like for-profits.
And believe in, this is it, you just have to believe in it is a service. We are offering, so we're service providers. And believe in that service that you're offering.
I love that answer, actually. I really, really, really like that answer. I had a question for you on board of directors. Both of you are on board of directors. You said you're chairman of the board. You're on the Redress board. I've often thought about this. Do you think all startups should have a board of directors? Because I know in the NGO world they seem to. In the for-profit world, I don't have a board of directors, and I often wonder what it would look like if I did.
Well, I winged it or wung it, whatever you say.
Wung it.
When I started this, I did have a board, like a silent board that just signed all the paperwork. Because it was small and I could sort it out, and I had advisors and I'd ask them the question and we could just solve the problems because the organisation was so small, it was easy peasy.
Yeah.
But now, yes, you need a board. My goodness, do you need a board? And, that's why I wish I had another 5 hours in the day, as we all do, so that I could be a better board chair, because you absolutely need a board, yes, to guide you in very complex areas, risk mitigation, compliance, finance, budgeting, reporting. Absolutely, yeah.
Interesting.
And I think that is what the board is a group of advisors.
Yeah.
And it's a group of advisors, and been incredibly looking at Feeding Hong Kong from the beginning, but was really bringing together a group of people that were not only passionate about what we did, had that shared value, but could advise on legal, could advise on the finance, could advise, that were food industry experts. Because I say right from the beginning, I didn't know the food industry. I'd worked in a bakery growing up, but that was about it. That was my first job at 16. So to bring in people that had that expertise, that is what the board is. Mm-hmm. It's a group of people that are able to advise and provide that counsel, which I'm sure as a startup you had as well.
Yeah.
But formalising that. Now, I think the challenge as you grow is that board has to evolve as well, because the team, that team of support that you have in year one is very different when you're at year 15, year 20. Yeah. But also making sure that the board doesn't slow you down. Mm-hmm. How do you continue to work dynamically, and how do you build in that agility with decision making? And that is the trick, because some charity boards in Hong Kong, Feeding Hong Kong, we're 6 board directors. Some charity boards in Hong Kong, 15, 20 people. How do you keep that decision-making moving when you have boards that large? It can be done, but it takes work and it takes time. And how many hours in the day do we have to manage that?
But sometimes it's a funder who wants to be on the board.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
That gets interesting as well, because I guess that has a different dynamic.
And it can be incredibly helpful to have somebody who understands, the organisation from, top down and bottom up again. But again, making sure it is the right person. And if that individual who's come in representing a funder then leaves that company, what does your relationship? You've got to make sure you're building the relationship with the funding organisation outside of that individual.
Yeah. Is there one metric you keep top of dash every day that you look at?
My energy.
Your energy?
Yeah. I mean, I'm skittish all day because I do way too much. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but I do too much of different things all day. I jump between, PR, finance, hustling, reporting, pitching, marketing, sales, writing press releases, sending out EDMs, sweeping the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the metric is, am I still sharp enough to do whatever I'm currently trying to do? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you do to preserve that energy? Do you have any boundaries that you set?
I don't work on Sundays.
You don't work on Sundays?
Yeah.
And beyond that, nothing?
I've got 4 kids and I'm single.
Wow.
So that threw a spanner in the works.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And for you, Gabrielle?
In terms of energy or metrics?
Metrics. Let's go back to metrics for a minute. Let's go back to metrics.
Yeah, I'm all about the metrics.
Yeah, you said that earlier. Is your dashboards are your main thing?
Dashboards, 3Fs, food, funds, friends.
Food
So how much food are we saving on every day, week, month, year? That number is what drives everything. How much food have we saved? How much money do we have? How much we have a fundraising target each year? Where are we tracking against that target? And then the friends piece is volunteers. So volunteering has been just at the heart of Feeding Hong Kong since day one.
Yeah. Is it the same people who keep coming back?
We have a combination. So we have corporate volunteers that come in as teams, and relationships that we've had with companies since day one, and then the individuals that come in, and they are essentially an extension of the team. You know, we have volunteers that jump in the vans with our drivers, that also work behind the scenes in the warehouse, that are doing more kind of specialist jobs that need more experience, whereas the corporate jobs, we still need the help. We basically need hands to sort and pack food.
Yeah.
So the corporate groups will be coming in, supporting with that. But we cannot do what we do without that volunteer support. That is, you know, the manpower that's coming through. So those are the three.
When you bring people into your organisations, are there any specific traits that you look for that you've learned over the years?
Well, for Redress, we have an amazing executive director. So she will do, obviously, the hiring with the team. So I actually don't do hiring myself personally for Redress. Obviously, I work with senior management team, but I'm not directly responsible for hiring. And I'm really bad at interviews. Yeah, just to let you know. She's the clever one here. But then but I guess, you know, a lot of people say, oh, passion is so important. Passion is so important. Yeah, but it's actually not. It's actually, can they get the job done as well, right? It's equally as important. I think passion doesn't pay the bills, you know. So they've got to also be better than me at what I'm trying to employ them for, particularly at the Art Collective, which is where I do all the hiring. So are they smarter than me? Then they can have a job.
Okay. So it's the same in the NGO world and in the for-profit world.
It's you absolutely you need the skills, because again, we have a job to do. We've got a mission that we're trying to achieve, and you need certain skills and certain experience. Now, the passion, though, you need the passion because I think it brings the team together. But also, we've got to be honest, we cannot always pay, or very often pay, the same salaries as commercial sector, especially the more experienced the staff. So if they are not coming in with that passion, then they're not going to stay. If they don't care about what they do.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is values as well, having shared values. Yeah. Because again, we could have somebody who comes in and they you know, are passionate about saving food, they're passionate about the environment, but they have to also have the shared value as to how we do it at Feeding Hong Kong. Because for us, you know, partnerships is at the heart of everything we do. People is at the heart of everything we do. And staff that come in, when they share those values, that's when they stay.
That's the magic.
That's the magic.
That's the magic.
Yeah.
Christina, on the Art Collective website, it says we found each other.
We found each other.
Yeah.
Which page was that on? I don't know what it refers to, actually. I need to read the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I would say on investors, I do want to say, because I've just closed my first external round. And in terms of looking at funding, sources, etc., there is a quote that says something along the lines of, the wrong investor is worse than no investor. And it took me 6 years to close the round that I've just closed.
Wow.
And why I'm saying that is maybe it was about mission drift and finding...
Yeah, that's similar as taking the money from...
the right people.
Take
the money from the right people. And so I've experienced that fundraising sort of first round, and it was very, very hard. And I finally found the right people. So I guess the point I'm making is taking money from the wrong company, whether you're for-profit or non-profit, is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, we found each other. That's the team.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Team, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's come back to you.
Yeah. Well, of course, because much like Gabs, you said at the beginning, when you founded Feeding Hong Kong, you were in the background because I was there beside you, and you were
quite happy in the background. I like being in the background.
And believe it or not, I used to also really be at the background. I did not start Redress to be up on stage poncing about telling people what I thought of the organisation. I absolutely hated the idea of ever having to sit here and do a podcast with you. But I had to do it.
Nothing personal.
I find it I find it incredibly fascinating because I went through this exact same journey where I didn't want to be shouting about our businesses. I just wanted to get on with them.
Yeah.
And then I realized that there's no one shouting about you if you're not shouting about yourself.
Exactly.
And it took a huge mind shift change for me to sort of start talking about the business.
Yeah. Well, ego. Go on, you say, Gabs.
No, what I was just going to say is, though, I mean, I just think you're incredible. That I know that that's how you truly feel. But when I first met you and I saw Christina speaking and we organised the conference in Geneva and you're up on stage, and I remember sitting there at the back because I'm a conference producer. I'm an events organiser. I like doing the logistics. I like doing the planning. And sitting there and thinking, how does she do it? How does anybody get up on stage and just talk?
Yeah.
It's taken me 15 years to feel, I mean, I'm still uncomfortable doing it.
It's a journey, isn't it?
But it's a journey. And as you said, if you're not doing it,
no
who
one
else
else
is?
right? And
who else is?
You just end up, you suffer.
But this is why I'm going to link ego to your question about we found each other, because I think I decided, okay, give me that mic, I'll do it. And then I probably had a huge ego for about, 8 years. And then I realized I am such an idiot. Founders can be right old idiots, really. And so, I mean, I didn't have a big ego, but, you do have to, put yourself out there.
Yeah. Puff your chest out a bit and just,
And it's not the most natural of places. So anyway, the point I'm making is that really the value of team, because as a founder, you can get a really big head, but actually you are absolutely nothing without your team. You're just someone with a microphone. So we found each other was the team of the R Collective. That's where you've taken that from. And that's why also to answer your question about what gives me pleasure, it's seeing the team excited and doing the work, doing the hands-on work. That is amazing. So you become a bit of a helicopter worried about the board level governance stuff, but then you see your team actually living the mission that was your sweat and blood and tears in the early days, and seeing other people take on your mission. That is the greatest thing. And working in a team is without any hesitation the greatest gift.
Love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. So, Gabrielle, I had a question for you. I wanted to ask you about that picture.
It's a very special day.
Yeah.
So it's a picture outside Buckingham Palace. I'm sandwiched between my lovely Auntie Anne and my mum. And that was just after I'd received an OBE. Wearing a dress that I picked up at the Redress winter pop-up 2 weeks before I got to the palace.
Amazing.
My mum was pulling her hair out that I hadn't got my outfit sorted, and I kept saying, don't worry, I'm going to go to Redress and I am going to find something that is pre-loved that is just going to be perfect. And I
Fit for a
did.
king.
Fit for a king.
It's and the reason I brought it out then, because we were talking about how it's uncomfortable at the beginning to talk about what you're doing in your business and yourself, and then it kind of feels weird when recognition comes a little bit.
Oh, it's the biggest shock.
But
biggest shock.
But it helps so much.
It does.
It helps so much because of the awareness that comes from that. We've benefited a lot from just little recognition here and there, but every time we get it, you see the impact on the business.
Yeah. And I think we don't do what we do to get awards.
Yeah.
But it's
you can pay for the awards.
It's validated.
Yes.
Kind of what we do. You can pay for the awards.
Awards. I keep getting these emails saying you have won and it's going to cost you $10,000 and I'm like, thank you, I've won. Entrepreneur of the Year, $10,000 cover photo on the magazine.
Which is why it's a very extra special thing when you don't have to.
No, absolutely.
When you don't have to pay for it. But it was incredibly special. It was a huge surprise when I got the photo. So you get a phone call in advance of the public announcement, and I've been having all these issues with my passport. I'm a British citizen. I was applying for my British passport and I had missed this call from the British consulate, and I was like, it's got to do with my passport. I've got to sort this out. And then getting through to somebody and saying, you've been awarded and Would you like to accept it? And I'm like, what?
Did you ask them to expedite the passport? That's
Missed opportunity.
Congratulations. It's amazing.
It was very
and you
special.
both had a lot of amazing recognition.
Yeah, well, and again,
Well deserved.
And thank you to Christina for all the support along the way. So actually, when I was over in London, Christina was amazing and allowed me and my family to stay at her home in London, which made it even extra special.
Fantastic. One last question before we go to audience Q&A. What is one single regulatory or procurement lever that you would accelerate your mission in Hong Kong?
EPR.
I would say tax deduction for me.
Tax
the one I'm
deduction
gonna
for
go
the
big on.
corporate.
Tax
That's the one
deduction.
you want from the government. Okay.
Tax deduction for donations of products and services to charities.
Okay.
I'd like tax on every product made that's a fashion item that brands have to pay in order to fundraise for end-of-life management recycling.
Brilliant. All right.
So tax.
Tax.
It's all about tax.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to regulation, right? It
Yeah.
comes down to having the government behind the mission.
But I think going back to it's partnerships, isn't it? It can't be any one organisation, individual. We need the government alongside companies, alongside NGOs.
To achieve systemic
so
change.
Coming together to get the systemic change.
Yep. Yep. All right. We'll throw it open to audience Q&A. We do have a mic going around, and it's just so that we catch it on the audio.
Just on the tax, being able to get a donation receipt for a company who donates something in kind. Is it not kind of in kind? I know there's something.
So right now, if you donate a product or service, it's not tax deductible.
It's not at all.
No. So only if a company gives a financial donation. So that would be the shift if we can get tax deduction for a donation of a product or an in-kind gift.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was really, really inspiring. I'm quite interested to learn a bit more about Hong Kong's current solutions for waste management. Yeah.
When it comes to textiles.
Textiles, yeah.
Well, I mean, there are charitable sectors doing collections like Redress, and we're certainly not alone. There are multiple charities. I don't know how many at the moment. And then there's private sector collections. Was the question specific about the government?
I guess specifically after the collections happen and, you know, if it's not sold, if it's not donated, like what happens to those that like would normally go to landfill, but if you do send them to Redress, for example, like what happens to that waste?
Yeah, so we know what happens within our sort of closed doors of Redress, and we are astutely, minutely focused on not sending anything that we can't handle outside of Hong Kong. So what that means is much like these hands that Gab said for feeding Hong Kong is volunteerism. So we have volunteers that help us to sort all of the incoming clothes into multiple categories. I think there's 25 categories. Don't quote me on that. And then we will resell the best stuff in order to raise charitable funds. And then we have charity partners where we will match what we've sorted according to charity A, B, C, D, E, F, G to ensure that they get what they need, that we don't give like a dog charity some, like bikinis. Type thing. We will invariably get some complete and utter rubbish come through, which will be mouldy and broken and completely not fit to donate to any charity, even to dog charities or pet charities. And I think typically, and I'm not up on all of Redress's data, Janice, is I think around 3% of a typical year, 5 might go to landfill for us for Redress. But within our collections, about between 17 to 35-ish% of what we take in is absolutely really unwearable. So it's really bad quality. It's mixed fibers. It's peeled. It's ripped. It really can't be used. Now, that is the problem. So with that, what we do is we actually pay for it to be downcycled in Hong Kong, and then it goes to be made into other products, primarily, don't laugh, punch bags. I could have one. Maybe you want one. So we are quite rare in that we will not export bad quality clothes to developing markets. Now, I can't speak for other charities. That's not my role. Having just come back from Ghana, though, and having literally pulled clothes. Oh, I was going to wear something that I found on the beach. Is that we in Hong Kong absolutely need to not send bad quality stuff outside of Hong Kong. But the problem is we're too small here. We don't have a recycling infrastructure set up. And so most for-profit textile collection companies, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm safe to say many charities will send it out to textile traders in Southeast Asia. And from there on in, it will go into multiple trading routes and possibly end up being chucked out in a developing country, which is not ideal. And then, of course, to the whole, I mean, I could feel your frustration around all the charging, which I'm not up to speed with in terms of the landfill. But I think it's absolutely atrocious that fashion brands and businesses can chuck into these precious landfills, which are completely and utterly full by whenever it's coming, textiles and unsold garment stock. You know, no one knows how many clothes. Sorry, no one knows anything about the fashion industry because it's all, the data is so dodgy. But essentially, apparently, 100 billion to 150 billion garments are produced every year, new garments. So that's a huge variation between 100 billion and 150 billion. Roughly, maybe 30% of those will never get sold. So basically, we have an industry waste crisis of garment, and we have a post-consumer crisis of garment. Yeah, and our landfills. 3% ish in Hong Kong, as I said. In the US, would you believe it, that between 2000 and 2018, the amount of textiles in landfill doubled in that time because, of course, fast fashion came to town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting, those figures, though, because the food is so similar. So of all the food that we produce globally, a third is never eaten. A third goes to waste. And when you just think, again, linking it to the flip side, which is the need, is the amount of people that are struggling around the world. We could solve global hunger if we just utilised everything that we grew.
We have enough clothes for 6 generations.
Wow.
But then we also have an industry making 2.45 trillion that's employing 1 in 8 people globally are employed by the fashion industry. So we do have to carry on shopping, people. Yeah, we do.
It's a conundrum.
It's just like...
It really is. Yeah. Time for one more if anyone has one.
Is there an international dimension to what you do? Is there sort of a Greta Thunberg in the spaces that you're in who is evangelizing this across countries and sort of building alliances and helping to put pressure on governments to make the changes that you'd like them to make?
I think there are lots of fantastic fashion activists out there. Many. So I'm very, very keen on that. I find a lot of the hardcore fashion activists are actually anti-capitalist. And they come from a very sort of staunch anti-capitalist perspective, which I don't think is very government friendly. So the radical fashion activists, I don't think welcome conversation. The problem is if we want to change legislation, which we clearly do, it has to be with an industry-centric lens. And so to that point, those radicalized, I would say, fashion activists don't actually help the conversation as it relates to legislation. What they do a great job is like improving public consciousness around the issues. So I'm very, very pro that. But I think in terms of fashion activism, it needs to be within industry. And one thing I would say, and I think it was something that really shut me up about fast fashion brands, is that I know some of the greatest fashion activists and they work for the biggest ultra fast and fast fashion businesses. So that's why I'm pro business full stop. And I know that some of the greatest people who should be here, they should be getting the OBEs. They're inside the businesses. Yeah. You deserve yours as well, Gabs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing. I hope in our small way that this discussion raises some awareness around the issues and the passion that you guys have, and for the length of time you've been doing what you're doing is incredible. So keep going. If people need to find you, want to support, how do they do that? Maybe we can end with that.
Well, and thank you, firstly, for having us. And I think having the two of us together, because it's the first time we've sat down and actually
had a natter
our story together. But yeah, for Feeding Hong Kong, our website is feedinghk.org, and we're on all the socials under Feeding HK.
And for us, we're redress.com.hk, get redressed on Instagram. And I would absolutely say, give us your old clothes. We're not after your money. And come to our charity shop in Sham Shui Po and shop like mad. Yeah. And follow us and, all the rest of it.
Well, thank you again. And thank you guys for coming and joining us and being such a great audience. Yeah, we'll go and have some drinks.
Yeah.
Thank you.